In this episode, I've actually written you a pitch for the book, okay, that I'm writing. It's the first time anyone on the podcast has heard this. You've got your notepad, and I want you gloves off to give me your opinion. Think of Pacivida as a practice you engage in from the moment you wake up to when you go to sleep. Whether it's through how you handle money worries or challenges at work, interacting with family or loved ones, or not so loved ones, or even how you approach your personal goals and aspirations.
Got a lot of notes. How much time do you have?
But there's something bigger, and that is the calling for humanity.
Okay. Now I was listening before, but now it's like, this is high stakes. This is urgent. This is a worldwide issue. One of my friends who's an editor at Simon & Schuster talks about the one thing that you want people to do when they close this book. That's a question that you will be asked in a room of publishers when you're pitching this. So the reason that one buys a book can be very different from what one ultimately takes away. They're often very different, and that's actually what's exciting. That actually is what encourages people to spread the word and leave reviews.
So something just happened there, Lucinda. What just happened? You said it was a water... Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment, where we explore the inner game of writing and life and inspire you to start, finish and publish a best-selling book. I'm Mark Desvaux, and in this episode we have a part 2 of our interview with Manhattan-based agent to the stars, Lucinda Halpern. If you listened to last week's episode, and thank you so much for everyone who's given me incredible feedback on last week. Now, if you didn't hear last week's episode, it's okay. They are like any good series. You can jump in on book 2 if you want, because this week, listening as I pitched my forthcoming book called Pacivida to the New York literary agent who's been securing book deals with major publishers for the last 15 plus years. And Lucinda represents a range of New York Times and international best-selling authors in both fiction and non-fiction. And just last week, she's celebrating the release of her new book, Get Signed, Find an Agent, Land a Book Deal, and Become a Published Author. And I checked it out today, actually, and it already has got that coveted Amazon bestseller flag. So we are absolutely delighted for you, Lucinda. Congratulations. And I really hope this book will become one of those mainstays in the world for writers. So in this interview, Lucinda shares the importance of your book's timeliness and timelessness, the initial reason why people buy books, why your lived experience is your expertise, and most importantly, why your pitch is essential to your success as an author. So make sure you listen to this, folks, and listen beyond my pitch when something very, very unexpected happens. Let's dive in. So I think it would be fun as a bit of a guinea pig, as you know, we've got a few minutes. As everyone knows on this podcast, I'm spending this year actually writing and putting out a non-fiction book into the world, which is, I love the fact that you said the word decade earlier, because when you hear my pitch, that word is in there in, I think, the opening paragraph, which is kind of amazing. But I thought it'd be fun, just you know, the bestseller experiment, right? It's all about experimenting. And I like to think of myself as a crash test dummy for all those other people out there listening to this, thinking, well, you know, if Mark can bumble his way through it, then, you know, maybe
I love that. That's exactly how I feel, by the way.
Right. Well, exactly.
You're becoming the author.
Exactly.
Let me be your guinea pig.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I've actually written you a pitch for the book, okay, that I'm writing. It's the first time anyone on the podcast has heard this. I've given out the title of the book and a very, very, very top level premise of what it is, but this is really going into detail for the first time. So I'm gonna pitch it to you, Lucinda, and you've got your notepad, and I want you gloves off, right, to give me, you know, your opinion on whether there's something here or not. Okay, you ready for this? We usually do drum rolls, but they always fail, so I won't do them. Okay, so the book is called Pacivida, How to make peace with your life. Imagine a life where daily stresses no longer unsettle you, where each challenge is an opportunity for growth. And inner peace is not just a concept, but a lived reality. This is the heart of Pacivida. Pacivida was born from my personal journey of adversity, and it's something I've been practicing for over 10 years without realizing it. Then I gave it a name. Pacivida is a triangle of 3 points. It's a daily practice, a transformative philosophy, and most importantly, it's a way of life. In a time when stress and complexity are at an all-time high, Pacivida offers a much-needed pathway to simplicity and peace, appealing as much to the overwhelmed to those seeking a more meaningful existence. We all have practices in our week. For some, it might be yoga, meditation, others going to the gym or journaling. But unlike all these beneficial and healthy practices, Pacivida is not confined to a scheduled session or physical space. It seemingly integrates into the rhythm of your daily life and changes your outcomes. In fact, you just show up and life will give you constant opportunities every day to practice Pacivida. Think of Pacivida as a practice you engage in from the moment you wake up to when you go to sleep. Whether it's through how you handle money worries or challenges at work, interacting with family or loved ones, or not so loved ones, or even how you approach your personal goals and aspirations. Each moment is a chance to embody the principles of Pacivida. It's the way you respond to a stressful email. It's the way that you handle a challenge, and it's the way you deal with life's latest curveball. It beautifully blends into your existing routine, making the pursuit of inner peace and balance as accessible and a constant endeavor for everyone, regardless of their lifestyle or beliefs. It's a conscious decision and intention to experience as little stress and as much peace in this experiment we call life. And it all starts by simply making the Pacivida pledge to yourself. However, Pacivida is more than a series of books. It's a way of life. Its universal appeal lies in its simplicity and depth, which will have significance for millions of people globally. But there's something bigger, and that is the calling for humanity. Whilst nations fight and planets suffer, the utopia of world peace seems further away than ever. And with the birth of Pacivida, today is the day we individually have to make the most important decision of our life. If we want to move humanity closer to world peace, maybe we all have to start to take personal responsibility to create peace in our personal world. Only then can we collectively make peace go viral. So my question to you is, how can we bring Pacivida to readers worldwide and inspire a transformative journey towards peace and purpose for individuals and ultimately humanity?
Wow.
That's
all right,
the
my
pitch.
Notes. Fantastic. Got a lot of notes. How much time do you have?
Well, as long as you got. I realized it was a bit long, but
Yeah, no. So I think you've done a phenomenal job selling the concept, right? Which is where a lot of writers struggle. Because I was, and of course you have a terrific voice, like you know how to do this, but I'm literally gripped like, this sounds amazing. This sounds more amazing. This sounds even more amazing. It's of course completely in my wheelhouse. It's exactly the type of book we represent. I think it's, I talk in the book about timeliness and timelessness and the importance of striking that balance. And this really has both, because you talk about a world where we've never been more stressed. And then we talk about, the perennial appeal of peace.
Whoa, something's just happened. Lucinda suddenly stopped and jumped up from her chair, threw down her headphones, and she ran to the back of the room. I'm going to stop the video right now. This hasn't ever happened in over 7 years of doing the podcast. I hope everything is okay. So something just happened there, Lucinda. What just happened? You said it was a water emergency?
Water emergency, if you can imagine. No one ever knocks on this office door. And our super just came by and said, you have to turn on all the water. I guess it's something with the building. This is New York living. This is authentic. Sirens in the background, water damage down in the apartment,
Can I just say, I didn't plan any of this.
Me neither.
But can I just also say that this is such a perfect example of everything I just said in the pitch. The curveballs that life throws us. Every minute of the day, we're just being served things by life, and it's how we deal with it. So I honestly, ever since your name came into my world, synchronicities are just kind of, and this is just, again, another example of a beautiful synchronicity, because it's what the book's about. It's about the fact that we can make any plans we want, but in the middle of a podcast, you've got a water emergency.
I know.
It's real I love it. I absolutely love it.
And it's all about the way you respond to it. So again, we're gonna prod more into Pacivida. I do need to know if the water is too loud for the pod. If
I can't hear a thing.
Great,
it's perfect.
Fantastic, great. So again, I think you've done such a good job in getting me more and more excited as this goes on. I think that the timeliness appeal of this is that what the best books in this area, self-help, call it whatever you want, personal development, self-improvement, is the freedom to be happy. It's the freedom to explore happiness. And the best books provide that freedom. That's always the biggest ticket promise. So that's what you're giving us here. It's a happiness book packaged in a different way.
But can I just challenge that a sec, Lucinda?
Challenge, please.
Because I've thought a lot about this over the last 10 years. And I had this massive revelation come to me as well about a year ago, as I stood in front of the happiness section of the bookstore, which is one of my favorite places to be. That particular section, not just the bookstore, but that section I love. And I've got the whole, and I know your history with Gretchen Rubin as well. And I think, wow, this is like, you were there at the beginning of the revolution where people were, which I think is amazing. I want to get into that as well. But I suddenly realized through my own personal experience, and I will say, it was losing my wife to cancer was that adversity where I had to make peace with all of those things around that and life, and being left with 3 children to look after. But I realized in that moment, Lucinda, that it's not just about happiness, because that part of my life was huge amounts of sadness, massive sadness over a 5-year journey as my wife kind of, slowly passed away. But in that journey, we as a family, we found this incredible peace. We made peace with what was happening. And I realized that you can be happy and peaceful, but you can also be sad and peaceful. And that's for me why peace is the focus here, because you can't be happy and sad, but you can be happy and peaceful, or sad and peaceful. Now, I'm immensely happy in my life and peaceful right now, but there was a period of my life where I had to meet that sadness. But we met it with peace, and it was it sounds weird to say this, but when we made peace with it, it was one of the most beautiful experiences of our family life. And that's where that was the place where this has been born from. And there's so much to share with the world around this, because I think purely the pursuit of happiness it's a bit of a roller coaster ride, because some days we're happy and other days we're struggling, and minute to minute, some people are like, things are going great. I always say this, that even the Zen monk stubs his toe as he walks into the temple, right? There's moments where we're joyful. There's moments. So for me, peace, this practice of Pacivida, is the core of what we need to show up and start working on, and be as happy as we can with it, which will lead to more happiness, guaranteed. So that's my take on it. It's just
I get it, and I love that, and I do not. Thank you for reframing it. It's an important differentiation, I think, will be to learn from for those who are listening. The way I was seeing it was commercially, right? So I know that Books that
Completely.
promise happiness sell. So,
Yeah.
so the reason that one buys a book can be very different from what one ultimately takes away. They're often very different, and that's actually what's exciting. That actually is what encourages people to spread the word and leave reviews, because they are pleasantly surprised by all they took away, but they bought it for a very different reason. So commercially, the value in your pitch to me as an agent was, this is going to promise us escape from pain or escape from anxiety into this bigger ticket of freedom and happiness. What you're teaching me, what I'm having the opportunity to learn with you, if I were to read the book, was that it's not an escape from happiness. It's a sitting with discomfort and finding a peace in it, not to be tormented by it, wherever your emotions may be. And so I think that distinction is sort of important, right? You may have you may have a lot of integrity in what you're trying to do in a book, but in the pitch, it has to appeal to sort of these more commercial sentiments, which your pitch did, Mark.
Right.
So that is one thing to note. I have a lot more to say on
Oh,
the
go for
pitch.
it. Go for
Okay,
it.
so I think that, again, beautifully presented, more engrossing as it went. If I could encourage you to lead with something counterintuitive. So you've just given that to me because we were in a dialogue about, you might think that this is a book where people may think that they wish to escape pain or find happiness, but in fact, it's about the simplicity of X, right?
Mm.
Simplicity is key. Singularity. Like, there's one thing I want you to do. There's one takeaway at the end of this book. There's one thing I want you to practice or think differently upon reading this book. And that actually should be in the pitch, because we're all looking for takeaways. We're looking for a fresh takeaway here. And when I heard the pitch through and through, I was waiting for it. I'm like, okay, but now how do I do it?
Do it. Yeah.
So I have a great sense of like the what, the sort of lofty promise of this. I have less of a sense of how I am going to, as a busy professional, the person that you are appealing to with this book, practice it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd also say, so a friend of mine, so I did 20 interviews for this book with editors and agents and Adam Grant and Mike McAlwitz. I mean, some really fantastic, successful authors. One of my friends who's an editor at Simon & Schuster named Steph Frerick talks about the one thing that you want people to do when they close this book. That's a question that you will be asked in a room of publishers when you're pitching this type of book, just, distinctly. But it can apply to novelists. It's like, what's that one memorable thing? With Happiness Project, a lot of people say it was to clean my closets.
Right.
Right.
Brilliant.
But it could be that simple. A lot of people,
Yeah.
I mean, with James Clear, it's habits. It's like, what are those simple practices that we can do? You mentioned series, and I'm like, wait a second, what, Mark? We haven't talked about a series. I thought we were talking about one book. So you need a little more about that, like how you're envisioning this as a series. You hit on some great words like universal. I love to hear that, because it's not like one man's story. It's a universal and perennial theme. You say millions of people worldwide. I want to know more. This is what was really absent in the pitch, which you fortunately have to brag about, who you are and why you're positioned to write this. More, a reader might be, an agent or a publisher might be reading this pitch and saying, but why? Why is this going to sell to millions of people? It can't just be because millions of people need it. It's because Mark already reaches so many thousands of people through his podcast, blah, blah, blah. But also, you then tell me about your wife and the children you had to raise, and that becomes your lived experience, which I say and Get Signed, your lived experience is your expertise. Yeah. So you've got a lot in terms of your positioning to be the best person to write a book like this, even though, to my knowledge, you're not a social scientist. I mean, tell me, even if you lack that, are you also a PhD?
I turned down a PhD because I wanted to get on with my career.
With life. So here we go, right? So these are the fascinating things that I'm finding out about you, but I'd have to be in conversation with you first. Whereas the pitch has to really do all of that work for us to get in the conversation, because a pitch is a conversation opener. So I wanted to know more about you, why you're positioned to reach these millions of readers. I love the high stakes at the end. This is about like, we can't have world peace if we don't have inner peace. Okay. Now I was listening before, but now it's like, this is high stakes. This is urgent. This is a worldwide issue. And I've got to explore Pacivida to make right in the world. So those were my notes, but there's one thing that this pitch really lacks, which is, what is Pacivida?
Ah, yes. Are you curious?
Of course.
Job done. That I actually intentionally don't.
You did.
Because I want you to go check
the cliffhanger.
Yeah, you go to the website. So when I just mentioned the actual name of the project, I had hundreds of people go to the website that I set up and just sign up to a mailing list. There's nothing there yet, but I've.
Whoa! But that's because of your platform, right? So that's important.
I will say that it's all there. This is not me just making up a kind of a fun, interesting story. There are principles. There are hundreds of pages just in the thought process around what Pacivida is. And it's so mind-blowing for me to stand back and go, oh my gosh, this is something. I feel like it's been given to me and I'm midwiving it through into the world. But the power in just that word, just alone, is mind-blowing in terms of how I've used it in my life. And I can't begin to tell you how, like, the thoughts that are coming to me, and then probably that last paragraph was the big kind of cliffhanger, like humanity. It goes beyond planet Earth, because I had this thought the other day and I want to share this with you. Elon Musk, his mission is to put people in a rocket, send them to Mars as a backup planet for planet Earth. That's his thinking, right? We can't have just one hard disk drive. If that blows up, we're kind of screwed. There's something more important than that. Because we've got a bit of time before we put those people on that rocket, and the problems of humanity are not going to be left on the launch pad unless we start to practice Pacivida. What kind of extra planetary worlds do we want to create? Do we want to just go to other planets and rinse and repeat what we've done on planet Earth? Or do we go with a different operating system, a different way of living? So there's a whole other interesting kind of connection with the zeitgeist right now in the world. But I mean, that was an alternative way of pitching it. But anyway, I digress. Just a kind of an interesting.
I like that. I like a different operating system. I like that as part of the pitch.
That's the kind of idea. Yeah, that's where the data stuff. And by the way, there's a whole data back to this in terms of proving that it works in numbers. It's not just some mindfulness exercise.
So why don't you give us this in the pitch?
I'm just not ready to pitch it, because as soon as in terms, I'm not ready to, with the technology in the background, because everything I always do has technology attached to it as well. I'm not ready to let people into that door, but I am collecting people to give us and giving them exercises to start measuring and tracking the changes that Pacivida is going to make in their life. But you have to join the mailing list to get that, because it's not, I literally haven't had time to put it on the website yet.
I love it. No, I think that's brilliant.
But I give myself a year to write the book and think all this through. So this isn't a big, it's not ready to go out the door yet in that sense. But
well, I love the concept. And again, I think what you're doing on the marketing front and how you're road testing this concept I talk about in the book is brilliant. When it comes to pitching agents in your query letter, I think you're going to want to bring out,
tell them what it is,
the numbers of people who've taken it and successfully applied it, but also like what I call your greatest hits, some of the most radical things you're telling people to do or think. One great thing that we will, think, like what Steph and I call the umbrella statement, what's the one thing that they're going to think differently about? And maybe it is about, how happiness is not all it's cracked up to be. It's more about Pacivida, and a sense of the what, and how it's flipping what we know to be true into something that you've uniquely discovered and have to offer. So I want more of that in the pitch when you finally come to pitch it. But I think all of the presenting around it and the stakes and the promise of it was done really beautifully.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for that. It's fascinating to get your take on it at this stage in the process. And I think as well, like reflecting on listeners, it's super useful for people to hear something in that kind of environment, to be kind of, analyzed, picked apart, and see what's working and what isn't working. Because I think too many people just write something and then they go pitch it, like, and they're out playing the game before they've even trained on the training field. Right. So that's absolutely awesome. So Lucinda, very quickly back to the book as well. I really want to celebrate the fact that this book is coming out. It's available pretty much everywhere. Now, you did the audio book as well. Was that a conscious choice?
Yes. Well, yes. I mean, these books, they have to be read by, you have to be the person reading your audiobook, right? People want to hear from the author's voice. And I was very intimidated by that idea, but it turned out beautifully. I just loved it.
And also as an agent, I know from personal experience, the audiobook of Back to Reality, like, people shouldn't be seeing that as a secondary thing that you just add on to, the hardback or the paperback. The audiobook in many cases can be as successful, if not more successful, or the driver for the whole project, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. Especially in this area, people really, because that's how we're listening, right? People don't have the time they used to sit down with a book and finish it the way through. They're listening to it while they're in the car, then they're reading it at night, then maybe they've taken their Kindle on the plane. Like, we're reading in all formats.
Brilliant stuff. And I think for your book as well, it also has that magic ingredient of word of mouth. I really can see, we know on the podcast, and we talk to lots of people, and books in this area always come up, but there's certain books that stick and are the ones that always get recommended. So my hope, my intention for you for this book is for it to get out into the world and work its magic and start making some people that maybe don't believe this can happen in their life to start to dream that this is entirely possible. And with your help and with your generosity of, like, in some ways, I'm pulling back the curtain and unveiling what goes on behind the scenes, and to really give people the best chances. I think one of the hugest legacies of your book are all of the authors who are going to benefit from incredible lifelong information you're going to be giving them, that will go on to live and share their passion with the world. And there'll probably be many you'll never even know about, because that's the challenge of an author. It's one thing working with clients, how how they are, but all those people that, in 10 years might come out of the woodwork and say, Lucinda, I read your book and it changed my life. And look, I wouldn't be here today without your book. So I really hope you get to hear those stories that come back to you.
Mark, can you be my agent? You sold that so beautifully. No, a couple like going back to the legacy piece of this, as I keep returning to that question of yours, how many people say, I've wanted to write a book all my life, or I've been talking about it for years, or people have been asking me for years. And it's like, how many people don't do it? How many people don't take that leap? Because it's so fraught with insecurity, and I don't have anything original to say, and I'm never get an agent, and I've gotten rejected by agents in the past, and I hear publishing is just for best-selling authors. There's so many myths that I'm hoping to debunk, and I guess my one dream for the writers listening is, like, don't live your life without doing this. Mm-hmm. If you've always wanted it, don't let this opportunity die. Go for it. Yeah. It's easier said than done, but I hope that, this will be the book that lets you stop talking about it and makes you start doing it.
Brilliant. Like I said on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, don't die with your story still inside you.
I heard that. Yeah.
And I think your book will open those doors for people. So thank you for the courage of showing up in the world and doing this, because you've been through this process many, many times with other people. And sometimes you look at that and you think the last thing you'd want to probably do is publish a book. And yet here you are taking it on, living your dream and absolutely rocking it, because, the amount I've heard about this book just outside of this interview shows me everything I need to know about, you're living it. You're living it, everything you've been teaching authors over, you're now proving it, through your own work as well. So I can only wish you every success with the book. And I look forward to seeing how the journey of the book and your journey continues over the next few years, Lucinda. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Mark. And when people read it, tell me what you want next to learn, because I feel like there's got to be some follow-up. And that's what I want to know, what I didn't cover in this book that you want to learn. So anyway, I'm wishing you the most amazing journey with Pacivida, because I think that there's something there that you have already deeply explored and, can offer to the world. So
brilliant. Thank you so much, Lucinda. And good luck with the waterworks. All the best.
Pacivida.
Pacivida.
Bye. Take care.
So, folks, there we have it. I pitched my book. I tell you what, writing a pitch is hard. Doing a pitch to an agent, on a phone or, in a meeting is another thing. But doing it live on a podcast, absolutely mental. It was a really great experience, though, and I was super, super excited about Lucinda's feedback. But it didn't end there, because, as you heard, we had to stop recording because of the water emergency that happened whilst we were filming. And when we finished the interview, Lucinda kind of was really curious about Pacivida, and she really wanted to understand a lot more about how it works. Like, what do you do? What is the practice? So I went into a bit more detail. And one of the things that I said to her was the kind of process and how it works. So listen into this clip after we finish the interview. There is a practice behind it. It's very simple, and then it goes very deep. And you can start, if you want to test it out, you can test it out. When stuff starts showing up in your life over the next 24, 48, 72 hours over the next week, the minute you feel that sudden engagement with the stress, just say the word Pacivida to yourself. Just try it. Just try it. There's some magic and power in the word. Paci stands for, it's a word I kind of invented, but Paci, or P-A-C-I, stands for making peace with, and vida is simply life. Pacivida. So there you have it. Off Lucinda went, and then the craziest thing happened. 10 minutes after we said goodbye, I got an email drop in my inbox from Lucinda, and the subject line said, "You can't make this stuff up." Well, something incredibly bizarre had happened when she finished the interview. And rather than me tell you about it, I asked Lucinda to actually send me a kind of an overview about what happened so you can hear it. So let's dive in and listen to that now.
Hey, Mark. So I wanted to give you a follow-up from yesterday's meeting with you, which I so enjoyed. I actually employed your tactic of Pacivida. As I think maybe your listeners know, there was a water outage situation in my apartment, and our super knocked on my door and rang the doorbell and interrupted our session together and asked that I put on all of the water in the apartment. So what actually happened was it started overflowing all over my kitchen floor, all over the apartment floor, so that when we ended our interview together, I saw that I was standing in a virtual flood, and one could draw many analogies to that. But at any rate, I thought, now is the time to channel just peace of mind and what I learned from you. And I had to just laugh at the situation, and I was just laughing all day. And it honestly brought me joy, because it was so unexpected that would happen during such an important conversation to me. So I want to thank you for that. And I went ahead and signed up for the method that you linked to in your email address and on your website, because I'm really eager to practice it more in my daily life. So thank you again for that, Mark.
So there you have it, folks. What bizarrest of events. I mean, as I sat back and reflected on everything that happened, I guess, I obviously was never expecting that massive disaster to happen. But when I reflected on it later, I thought to myself, what a mad pitch. Like, there I am kind of trying to sell the idea to an agent to get feedback. And then literally within 10 minutes of finishing the pitch, the disaster happened where Lucinda got to practice the whole principles of Pacivida. And like, I stand back and I look at that and I think, as much as the disaster was obviously awful, and I can't imagine what it must have been like to be stepping down into a load of water, it was one of those examples, which is the reason why I'm writing this book. It's the fact that things happen to us, like life throws us these curveballs. I mean, not always as disastrous as a flood in your apartment, but it's everything from like getting stuck behind somebody when you're rushing to a meeting in a car, and it's the frustration of that. And then there's all the big stuff that happens to us as well. So, wow. I mean, I look back on all of that and I think, maybe I'm onto something here. I don't know. But I'm really curious to see what you think. It's the first time I've actually talked about the book in any level of detail. And I'm really curious to get your feedback. I would love to hear from whether you, what you thought of the pitch, whether it piqued your interest, whether you'd be interested in reading a book about the subject that I've been talking about. And if you really would like to find out more, you can pop along to the website, pacivida.com. That's PACIVIDA, pacivida.com, which stands for Making Peace with Life. And you can sign up to a newsletter there. And I also have something called the Pacivida Pledge, which I referenced in the interview with Lucinda. And that is a pledge where you basically set the intention that you want to try to approach the things that happen to you in life as peacefully as possible. And when you sign up to that pledge, you get onto a newsletter, which I send you, a weekly newsletter, which starts to kind of give you some background about what Pacivida is and how you get to practice it and how you get to try it out. And the really exciting thing about this is I am writing this book whilst all this is going on. The book is not written, it's being formulated. And I am looking for people to try this out and give me feedback. So if you try it out and it really works for you and you get a case study, you could end up in the book. And I'm looking for people to try this and give me feedback. Because, it's one of those things about, like we did in the first year where we wrote Back to Reality, we were kind of polling people as we went along. We were asking people for feedback, generating questions, and just making the whole thing come together. It was almost like a crowdsourced experiment. So if you're interested in finding out more, pop along to pacivida.com, pop your name on the list, and I will be in touch with some challenges for you and some ways that you can start trying Pacivida in your life. And I'm hoping it will make a massive difference. Obviously, I don't want any floods going on. I've had enough of floods. Floods are good. We'll do some other stuff, but whatever it is for you, please do try it out. Lucinda has generously given us 3 signed copies of her book, Get Signed, to give away. So to put your name in the hat to win one, simply go to bestsellerexperiment.com/win and add your name. What are your writing dreams? Finishing that book? Quitting the day job? Becoming a best-selling author? Since 2016, we've interviewed and studied the advice of over 500 best-selling authors who've collectively sold over 1 billion books. And in the Bestseller Academy, we've incorporated powerful and proven strategies for success, inspiring fiction and non-fiction authors just like you to reach new heights and write their best book ever. Ready to take your writing to the next level with accountability, craft, coaching, and the most inspiring and exclusive community of like-minded writers? Well, your bestseller dreams are just a click away. Join us today at bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. That's bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. I'd like to thank you all, our family of Experiments, and all our wonderful patrons, subscribers, and Bestseller Academy members. And this week, patrons of the week are Jan Carr, Jack Harmon, and Gareth Watkins. So thank you so much, all of you, for subscribing to the podcast, getting all the extra bonuses and goodies. And if you'd like to be like Jan, Jack, and Gareth, pop over to bestsellerexperiment.com/support. And as you may or may not know, we do have a YouTube channel where you can watch all of these interviews live with our special guests. And this week's YouTube subscriber of the week is the wonderfully named Woolly Sheep. I don't know where people come up with their names, but welcome to the family of Experiments, Woolly. And Academy member of this week is Karen Story. And Karen, you are our Academy member of the week for this week because of your consistent and incredible success with your short stories being constantly shortlisted and winning so many competitions. And Karen doesn't know this yet, but I am like to invite her onto the podcast as an Academy All-Star to find out how she does it, because she's a phenomenon. And if you're into short stories and entering competitions, or even if you're just looking to try and get started, you may be struggling with that big elephant of a book that you're trying to get into, short stories are a great way to go. So we're going to get Karen, if she'll have us, we'll have her on the show and we'll chat a little bit more with her. So folks, if you would like to check out the YouTube channel, it's just Bestseller Experiment on YouTube. Just have a search for it. You'll find it. We also launched this week. We launched some shorts, YouTube shorts, which is something, so addicted to them. It's bad, isn't it? If anyone sits on their phone in the evenings and looks at one short video on, I think, Facebook as well, pretty guilty pleasure, Instagram and YouTube shorts. So addictive. Well, I looked at them, I thought, well, we've got some really cool stuff on the podcast. So we stuck up a Bryan Cranston short. I think it's about 48 seconds about him talking about what makes a good story. And we put it live a couple of hours ago. Just looking at my watch now. Yeah, about 2.5 hours ago. It's had over 1,000 views already. It's absolutely bonkers. So thank you if you're watching the shorts. And I'd like to put it out there. I know we've got some real long time listeners, some people who've been with us for like over 7 years. Send me in on the Facebook page or on Twitter, or drop us a note from the website. I want to know some of your favorite quotes from the show over the last 7 years. What we're going to do is we're going to collate those ones, and the ones that we're going to, the people like the best, we're going to create YouTube shorts out of them and stick them online as a way of, letting people know about this podcast, spreading the word a bit, and also having a bit of fun as well online. So drop me a note. What is your favorite quote or quotes? And who said it, and we will create a YouTube short if we get enough votes for it. So folks, let's talk now about wins. So we didn't have wins last week because of the episode being so long, but this week we have a lot of wins to cover. So get ready, folks. You might hear your name on this one. First of all, we are celebrating with Laura Shep. Laura has released her new book, The Trials of Lila Dalton, which she's so excited about. And there's been some crazy stuff going on with the launch of this book, such as some really big Twitter influencers or ex-influencers getting behind it and shouting about how excited they are, how much they're enjoying it. Lawyers and all fights. So if you're into that kind of legal drama, then go check out Laura's book. Absolutely brilliant cover, by the way, as well, Laura. Super excited for you. And we're also celebrating with Andrea Van Bruggen. And Andrea, you wrote in to say that you are celebrating 1 year of writing. This is such a great milestone. Like, we should be looking for opportunities to celebrate, like an anniversary of when you started a book or an anniversary of when you started writing. So congratulations, Andrea. And I know that Andrea's been working so hard, developing this daily writing habit of getting those words down. And everything is incredibly exploding right now with all of the things that are happening. So congratulations, Andrea. And going back to the beginning of the new year, you may remember I interviewed the lovely Tessa McWilliams from Johannesburg in South Africa, who had this lovely story that went viral, encouraging parents through COVID. Well, Tessa, as you may have heard, I kind of gave her a gift of coming and joining the Bestseller Academy and being with us. And Tessa celebrated with us at the end of January that she finished reaching 30,000 words in her novel, which is an absolutely massive accomplishment. And we all know that these 10,000 words, even 5,000 word milestones that we get to are all huge chunks of words that get us closer to the end. So congratulations, Tessa. It's great to see you writing so incredibly well. And we just hope that that book just continues plowing through to the very end. Get that first draft done, and then you can enjoy the editing process and the redrafting process as well. I say enjoy, some people can't stand it. But there are some people out there, I know that a lot of people listen to this, and some people we've interviewed as well, who said they absolutely love the editing process. And I've got to admit, I find it easier, like Joe Hill said, a couple of weeks ago on the podcast Best Of that we did, that, it's much easier to work with a page of writing than working with a blank page. So if editing is not your thing, if it's something that you kind of dread or you don't enjoy doing, Just be grateful that you're not looking at a blank page, having to kind of try and come up with something. The fact you've got to the editing stage of your book is a massive, massive milestone. So keep on going through, and maybe you'll learn to love the process as well. And maybe if you love editing, maybe you should write in and let me know what it is you love about it. I'm also interested in talking about editing from a perspective of the 200 word challenge. So what we do on the 200 word challenge is we have a goal of about, we usually say 15 to 20 minutes a day you want to put aside to try and write your 200 words. But then people started asking us about, well, what about editing? What if I've written the book and I'm now editing? So we created this currency exchange. So if you do 20 minutes of editing, that's the equivalent of doing 200 words. And you can bank those editing minutes in the word bank with the 200 word challenge, which you can, by the way, get to if you go to 200wordchallenge.com. So one of the things that we're looking to expand upon is like tips to help people getting through the editing process. And one of the things that I love to focus on is when we're writing a book, we're obviously focusing on word count, but when we are editing, I think it's really important to focus on page counts. Okay, so set yourself a goal. I mean, I don't know how many pages you can edit in 20 minutes. I guess it depends on what's happening in your book and how much work there is on it, or rework. But if you set yourself a time limit and a number, or maybe a number of pages that you're going to try and get through each day, it just kind of bite-sized chunks up the whole editing process. Instead of seeing this entire manuscript, you think, oh, like 300 pages to get through. Having just 3 or 4 pages a day, you'd be surprised at how quickly that starts to eat away. So, no different from reading a big book, really. So think about that. And if you've got any particular tips, if you're a master ninja at editing, then drop me a note. Go to bestsellerexperiment.com, click on the contact form, and send me your tips, and I will read the best ones out on the show. So folks, if you've enjoyed the music, it's Urban Myth Club on this show. That's my project. Pop over to urbanmythclub.com or go to Spotify, Apple Music and the like, and check out some of that music that you might want to use as you write. Some nice chill out stuff, and there's some nice kind of epic orchestral music that you might find useful when you're writing. So do go and enjoy that. Maybe build up a playlist. And if you've enjoyed watching or listening today, you can also watch episodes online at YouTube at Bestseller Experiment. Also join us on socials, as always. On Facebook, we're Bestseller Experiment. On X or Twitter, Instagram, Threads and Pinterest, we're Bestseller XP. So folks, I just want to say a big, big thank you to all of the team that puts this together with me each week. Thank you to JD, to Dave and Lisa. Couldn't do it without you folks. And if you want to check out today's show's notes, there are links to Lucinda's book. There are links to the competition if you want to just go to the show notes. To get there, you just go to the podcast navigation on the Bestseller Experiment website. All the podcasts are there. Click on the one you want and you'll see the show notes below the episode. And there's a ton of extra links there, so do go check it out if you've never checked out the show notes. We always put a lot of information up there, which is extra for you to kind of click and check all those things out. And also, whilst you're at the website, do check out the newsletter for weekly updates, episodes and exclusive. And as I said before, you can drop me a note by clicking on the contact button there, and I do read every message that comes through. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to get the writing habit of lifetime, head over to the 200 word challenge, 200wordchallenge.com. The challenge is, can you write consecutively for 5 days, 200 words, and start that writing habit of lifetime? It's worked for so many people, folks, and there are now 30 million plus words that have been banked with thousands of people doing the 200 word challenge. So thanks so much, everyone, for doing that and encouraging each other on. So guys, have a fantastic writing week, and thank you for spending all this time with me today. I really appreciate it. And until next time, it's a goodbye from Mark Desvaux, aka Bookmark. Goodbye.